This is YR, Women in AI Research. In this EACL 2026 series, I'm speaking with authors of accepted papers to break down their work and the ideas behind it. Let's dive in. Could you please, first of all, introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Maor. I'm from Tel Aviv University. And I'll be talking about the paper Detecting Unanswerability in Large Language Models with Linear Directions.
Amazing. So I know that this paper was accepted to the EACL conference this year, the main track, and I'm really interested to hear about this. So could you please walk me through your post?
Yes, of course. So we know that large language models tend to be overconfident in their self-knowledge. So usually when they get questions they don't know the answer for, they will hallucinate instead of just giving some indication that they don't know. So we wanted to find a way to give such indication using the internal representations of the model. So first of all, I will show you in this graph that we can see here the abstention rates on unanswerable questions. So we would want it to be much higher, but in reality, models tend to answer instead of abstaining, even when they don't know. In the red and green bars, we use some prompt manipulation to encourage the model to abstain when it doesn't know. And even then, you can see that it improves the performance, but it's still not enough. So what we did was we found a linear direction in the internal representations of the model that represents unanswerability. And we showed how you can use it to classify new inputs as answerable or unanswerable. So I will now go to the method to describe how we found this direction and how we used it to classify inputs. So our method is comprised of 3 steps. In the first, we use the technique called difference in means to gather a set of potential directions. Then in the second step, we chose the best one of them. And in the third, I will show how we use it to classify the new inputs. So for our first step, we use the technique called difference in means. We group the inputs into answerable and unanswerable examples. And we run them through the model and extract the hidden activations at each layer and token position. And we compute the difference between the mean activations of the unanswerable prompts to the answerable prompts. And we do that for each layer and token position. So we get such a direction vector for each layer and token position. Now, in the second step, we want to find the best one that represents unanswerability. So we use steering of the model. We at each layer and token position, we add a direction to the hidden activations at the same layer and token position where we extracted the direction from. And we measure how much this direction can increase the model's tendency to abstain. So we hypothesize that if this direction actually captures an unanswerability signal, it will increase the model tendency to abstain from answering. So we started by denoting we instructed the model to respond with the word unanswerable if it doesn't know. And we denoted the first token in the word unanswerable as T-un. So a way to measure this is calculating how much the model is more likely to respond with the token T-un rather than any other token in the vocabulary. And we mean this score over the validation set of k examples. So this score is called phi-steer and is calculated for every direction that we found at each layer and token position.
I see.
Okay, so we finally choose the direction, the unanswerability direction, to be the one that maximizes this score, and we denote it as V star, taken from layer L star and P star. Now, to classify new inputs, we did something pretty simple. We ran the new input through the model and extracted the hidden activations at L star and P star. and we project this activation on the normalized direction to calculate an unanswerability score. And we do this classification using this score. We use the validation set to calculate a threshold. And if this score is above the threshold, we classify it as unanswerable and otherwise as answerable.
So the threshold is computed how exactly?
And we use the validation set to compute a ROC curve, and
Mhm.
we selected the threshold that minimizes the distance to the ideal point, where the false positive rate is minimal and the true positive rate is maximal. Okay, so I'll move on to the results. So we compared our method to uh, 3 baselines. 2 of them are prompt-based baselines. And in one of them, we use the standard prompt that instruct the model to answer. In the second, we use an abstain-aware prompt baseline where we hinted the model to respond with unanswerable if it doesn't have the answer. And I will also note that in our setting, we focused on extractive QA, where the model gets a context and a question and instructed to answer the question using the context. And our third baseline is the linear classifier that was trained on the hidden state of the last layer of the model. We found that the classifier got the highest results from all baselines, so I will focus on the comparison of our method to the classifier. And in those heat maps, you can see the F1 scores. The rows represent the training data sets and the columns the evaluation data sets. So in this diagonal is the in-domain result. So each result is the training data set is the same as the evaluation data set, meaning that we evaluated on the same data set that the method was trained on. So you can
But
see
it's
that.
still, sorry, but still it's the training subset of squad, let's say, and the evaluation subset. So those are different data samples just from the same data set. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the training set from squad and the evaluation set from squad. It's a
Mhm.
different set. Yeah.
I see. Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it's just in domain, and you can see that the classifier performs slightly better than our method. But when it comes to generalization between data sets, our method usually performs slightly better. But in a lot of cases, the generalization is still pretty low. In the next step, we asked ourselves if those lower generalization results come from the fact that the direction is very specific to the dataset, or maybe just a need for a threshold calibration. So in the right side of the heat maps is our method with a calibrated threshold. So in these examples, we use the same training dataset to extract the directions, but for the classification, we calculated the threshold using a validation set from the evaluation dataset. So now the threshold fits the evaluation dataset, and we can see that it improves the generalization results significantly. So our conclusion from this is that the direction actually captures a robust signal for unanswerability that can transfer between datasets.
I see.
So another experiment that we did was steering effectiveness to see if we can use the direction to influence the abstention rates of the model. So we did something that is very similar to the steering step that we had in our method, where we added direction to the activation state, but this time we added direction at different scales from -2 to 2. And we measured how much it caused the model to abstain. We measured the abstention rate over both answerable and unanswerable examples. And in this graph, the x-axis is the scale of the direction, and the y-axis is the abstention rate. And you can see that when we add a direction enough, the model abstained from answering in almost all cases on almost all data sets. And when we ablate the direction enough, then the model usually tries to answer even when it doesn't have the answer. So the direction, this is another way to show that the direction captures an unanswerability signal that can actually causally influence the model's decision to abstain.
Mhm. Interesting. That's a very interesting work. I have a couple of questions. So
Mhm.
first of all, when you are calculating the going through the method of yours and calculating the differences in means and the direction, you're
Yes.
using multiple layers, right? Because you're
Yes.
doing that for each layer. I wonder if you have any intuition mm, on the differences basically across layers of the model and whether you maybe have noticed that the actual direction is formulated at at a certain level rather than in the very beginning.
Yes, so actually we found that all the directions from all data sets were found in the middle layers of the model. And this is very consistent with prior work that most of the times abstract concepts like this are represented in middle layers of the model. We show this in our paper. We show the layer in which we found each direction. In Llama, it's usually 16 out of 32, and in Gemma, it's also in the middle layers.
Mhm. That's the great insight. Good to know. Also, you show the results on Llama and Gemma here.
Yes.
Are these the two models that you experimented with, or you've done more experiments? It just they're not shown here.
No, I experiment only with Gemma and Llama.
I see. How big is Llama model? What's the size?
Oh, it's 8B.
8 billion. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And Gemma?
Gemma, it's I think 12. Yeah.
I see. So a similar size.
Yeah.
Wonder, do you have any thoughts about whether this approach would work on a different size of models? Let's say, I don't know, 120 or something like of the sort, bigger model.
Yeah, so intuitively, I think that it will also work on bigger models. I believe that unanswerability um, can be represented in a similar way in a bigger model as well. Um, there might be a chance that it represent over maybe more than one layer in a bigger
Mhm.
model, but I believe it can work there as well. I didn't try.
I see. I see. And the last question that interests me is in the very beginning, like in your introduction
Yeah.
section of this poster, you have this plot that shows that if you modify the prompt in an appropriate way, the performance increases, right?
Yes.
The model start refusing answering when they don't know the answer, like more
Yeah.
frequently. Have you maybe tried to combine both your method and the adjustment of the prompt? I wonder whether those two approaches they are combinable, or
Yeah,
it's better
actually,
to use one.
so in our results, we used we when we run the model, we use the prompt with the abstention prompt. I didn't mention it here, but we mentioned it in our paper.
Mhm.
So actually, all of our prompts that we used in our experiments contain this abstention prompt.
I see. I see. That's nice. Links are in the description, both the paper and the author. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to follow this series. See you next time.